This is me in the spring of 2009. Here I am in Seabright, Nova Scotia with my Uncle Barry and my mother Jeanette. At the time this photo was taken, I was weighing 340, maybe 350 pounds. I'm not quite sure because I had given up weighing myself ages ago. I had leg ulcers from bad circulation in my legs. I was taking 3 medications for high blood pressure, which was hovering around 190 over 140. I also could not get up a flight of stairs without being completely out of breath. On top of the physical ailments, I also had mental issues to deal with. I was quite depressed, and I was quite hopeless about ever losing the weight. And this is me today, 160 pounds lighter. Those leg ulcers, completely gone. And the high blood pressure, I'm off all the medications. And in fact, my doctor is actually worried about low blood pressure. When I tell people that I lost 160 pounds, one of the most common questions I get is, how did you do it? Typically, they are hoping to hear of some magic bullet. Atkins, South Beach diet, paleo diet, grapefruit diet, magic pills, or some kind of potion. They seem disappointed when I tell them that there is no magic trick. For me, there were 3 important facets to my success. First was moving more, getting more exercise, starting with something reasonable and gradually increasing my exercise over time. Second was changing my diet from fast food most nights and lots of sweet junk food to eating more fruits and vegetables. And lastly, and probably the most important, was reaching out and getting help from others. Rarely have I seen people succeed at any of their life goals without leaning on other people for support. And it's the same with weight loss. There is no doubt in my mind that I would not have been able to accomplish what I did without the help of so many wonderful people. I'll start with exercise since that's actually where I started. It was one day at StatsCan where my colleague Salim came up to me and said, I know that your friends are away on vacation this week. Did you want to come with me to the gym? And I was sort of taken aback. It was sort of out of the blue. Uh, I knew Salim had been concerned about my health, and he had insinuated things in the past, but this sort of was a big step. And he was right. I didn't have anything going on that week at lunchtime, and I was looking for something to do. So on a lark, I did join him. So I had to go scrounge around for something to actually use as workout clothes. So I did find my sweats and a t-shirt and headed off to the gym with Salim and did work out with him for that week. And all I could manage to do was 20 minutes on the exercise bike, and I was done. I could not move. I was covered in sweat, but that was all I could do, and I did it. And I did it every day that week with Salim. At the end of the week, I happened to be down 2 pounds. So I said, maybe, just maybe, I can actually do this. Maybe I can lose a bit of weight. And then it just started to snowball from there. I was able to increase how much I was doing on that exercise bike. I started going to this pool to go swimming. And then I started buying my own exercise equipment. This here is my basement. You can see that I have the treadmill, the Wii Fit, and the stationary bike all set up in front of the big screen plasma TV. If I'm going to watch some of my favorite shows, whether it be West Wing, Criminal Minds, CSI, I have to be on one of those machines. Have to be on the treadmill, have to be on the exercise bike. And if I'm looking for a little bit of fun, then I use the Wii Fit. But mostly it's on the treadmill and the exercise bike that I use. But that's not all that I actually had used for exercise. This is a view of what is under my desk at work. One bag holds my swimming gear, another has my running gear, yet another has my kickboxing gear, and the last one has my softball gear. Like I said, I took up a lot of new activities. I have a partial list here. Soccer, cross-country skiing, softball, swimming, ball hockey, water polo, boot camp, cardio kickboxing, hiking, combat conditioning/boxing, and volleyball. And that's just a partial list. Some of these things I only tried once, didn't like it, didn't go back. Yet others I was sure I was going to hate, but turned into addictions. For example, running. I had seen people out beating the pavement, sweating, gasping for air, totally drained. I just didn't see the attraction. Until I tried it for myself, and then I was sold. You have to find the things that work for you. If you don't find things you enjoy as exercise, you're not going to do it. And find ways to spice up your exercise. Never find me exercising without some kind of audio playing, be it music or podcasts. I even brought waterproof headphones for when I'm doing laps in the pool. It's important that exercise be seen as play rather than work. You really have to enjoy what you're doing. Speaking of enjoyment, I absolutely love cycling. I get very little housework done during the summertime. Every spare hour that I can find, I'll be out on the bike paths. I feel very sorry for the other people out on the pathways that have to put up with me singing along to the Best of Culture Club as I ride by. On to the food. First thing I want to tell you is that I've been a vegetarian since my early 20s, and people are quite shocked by that. How did I manage to get up to 350 pounds being a vegetarian? Let me tell you, it was quite easy. I tell people that the way that I lost the weight was going from pizza, pasta, and pie to beans, broccoli, and bananas. As crucial as it was to replace the high-fat, greasy foods and sweets in my diet with more fruits and vegetables, it was just as important to watch the portions of food I was eating. So I put an application on my cell phone that helped me track what I was eating. At the time that I was losing weight, I was using a program called Lose It, but now I use MyFitnessPal. Either are great applications. I tell people that are struggling with their weight that before any food goes into their mouth, it should go into their food diary. I can't tell you how key this is to your weight loss success. I have found an incredible correlation between those that fastidiously track their foods and those that have success losing and maintaining their weight. It's like making a budget and writing down when you're spending money for those people that have trouble keeping on top of their finances. It makes you accountable to yourself. But the benefits don't end there. By writing down what I was eating, I was able to go back over past weeks, analyze problem areas, get feedback from others on where I could make improvements, get suggestions from others on things like how to get more protein at breakfast time or how to avoid snacking late at night. I have not followed the same diet plan since I started. It was always and remains a work in progress. But by tracking what I was eating made it so much easier to find the weak points and get help on finding ways to improve. So who are these wonderful people that have been helping me find ways to eat better, giving me suggestions, and sharing their ideas? Well, after Salim and I had gone to the gym for a week and I was down that couple of pounds, I wanted to tackle the food intake issue. But I knew nothing about healthy eating, except to say that it probably wasn't my current diet of pizza 4 nights a week. But I had no idea where to go for advice. So I called up my mother and I asked her where I could possibly go for nutrition advice. My mother knew exactly where to send me. My mother is a TOPS chapter leader for Hammonds Plains, Nova Scotia, which is my hometown. TOPS is a non-profit weight loss support and wellness organization. My mother suggested I see if there was a chapter near me, and as it turned out, there was one just right around the corner from my house, which was perfect. TOPS is similar to what people tell me Weight Watchers is like, in that there's a weigh-in, a meeting where information is shared, and people get support from others who share the same goal. But there were significant differences. The first is cost. TOPS costs much less than Weight Watchers because it's primarily run by the members themselves. People volunteer to do the duties required to keep the chapters and organization as a whole going. The reason TOPS is able to accomplish what it does is due only to the countless hours of work by dedicated volunteers. Another difference within TOPS is their focus on maintenance after people reach their goal weight. There is a special status within TOPS for those that have reached their target weight. They are referred to as COPS, as they are keeping off pounds sensibly. There is continued support and recognition for those that are managing to maintain their weight. I have met a few people who have lost significant weight without joining a support group, but it seems to me like it is a far more difficult task. And maintaining without help is even more difficult. So I suggest to people to get support wherever they can find it. If Weight Watchers works for you, fantastic. I definitely recommend TOPS every chance I get. But I also have been getting support from other avenues as well. I joined a support group called the Half Size Me Community, which is a virtual online support group, and thus is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And this is a very diverse group of people from all around the world. People who are just starting to lose weight, people who are getting closer to their goal, and people who have been maintaining for years. Now these are just a few examples of how people can get support to help them lose the weight. Do not try to do this alone. It's hard enough struggle to lose the weight and get healthier even with support. Don't make it more difficult by being too proud or too nervous to ask for help.
After 4 months in tops, I was down 40 pounds and wanted to reward myself for my progress thus far. I had read the warning on the side of the Wii Fit, and it said you had to be under 300 pounds to use it. So now that I was just under that mark, I purchased one as a means of having another fun way to get exercise. Not only does the Wii Fit have plenty of exercises, but it also tracks your progress in terms of weight, BMI, and other indicators. Like I said, I was down 40 pounds already, so I was feeling pretty good about myself. So I hopped on the Wii Fit, and it put my BMI at the very high edge of obese, almost completely off the chart. But I didn't let that deter me. I was losing and doing the behaviors that I needed to do to continue losing. And continue to lose I did. By January of 2010, I was in the middle of the obese range. And then in February, I was on the low edge of obese. You should have heard the roar from my Tops chapter the night that I walked in and proudly announced, "Hey everyone, I have some absolutely fantastic news. I'm finally overweight."
If you think that's funny, you should have heard the room when I walked in that July and told everybody, "Hey, guess what everyone? I'm now normal." Yeah, they got a kick out of that. In August of 2010, I hit my goal weight of 170 pounds. I had lost 160, maybe a little bit more, in just over a year. I was honored to be named the Tops Ontario Weight Loss King for 2010. In early 2011, I went to Sarnia, Ontario for my coronation. This is a picture of me with my Chapters 2 weight recorders. Pat is to my left and Marilyn to my right. Marilyn herself has been on quite a weight loss journey herself, now being down 80 pounds since this photo was taken.
This is a picture of me with my compatriot, the Tops Ontario Queen for 2010, Sandra. Sandra lost 190 pounds and was, as you will see later, also named the International Queen Runner-Up. I will include links to her YouTube video about what the weight loss has meant for her, as well as a link to a newspaper article about her accomplishments. I very much enjoy going to the Tops annual provincial conferences and catching up with Sandra and her husband Barry to find out what has happened with them over the past year. And I also look forward to Sandra and I being recognized together as past provincial royalty.
Speaking of Milwaukee, I attended the Tops International Conference there in 2011 as one of the award winners. While I was in town, I was able to visit the Tops headquarters and get a closer look at how the organization is run. While at the Tops headquarters, I was able to step on Big Bertha, one of the scales that was used at the original Tops chapter in Milwaukee. I was happy to announce I was still at my goal weight. While in Milwaukee, I decided not to stay at the hotel close to the convention center, and I instead stayed at the dorm rooms at a local university. Being able to use their kitchen area and having my own refrigerator made staying on track so much easier. As you can see, the refrigerator is stocked full with bags of veggies, salad, egg whites, and low-fat yogurt. So I was able to eat healthy every single day rather than going out to the restaurants and having fast food. I had such a blast at that conference, but I think my favorite memory of the conference itself was meeting up with the Canadian royalty. I was able to meet with the kings and queens from across the country, and I still keep in touch with some of them. I got to know the king of PEI quite well, and I get to see the king from Nova Scotia every year at the Nova Scotia Provincial Conference. I really enjoyed meeting up with them and sharing the experience with them. And of course, I cannot pass up the opportunity to get one last picture with Sandra as the Tops International Queen runner-up. I call this section Common Weight Loss Mistakes. Some of these things I learned from my own experience losing weight, and things I would have done differently if I had to do it over again. Some of these are things I observed from other Tops members and seeing their frustrations. But also I got a lot of help on this section from Vanya, my personal trainer at Freeform Fitness. Funny story, my first day with Vanya as my personal trainer, she introduces herself to me, shakes my hand, and says, "Hey, aren't you the guy that lost a lot of weight with Tops? I was like, wow, oh my God, I'm famous. As it turns out, Vanya had done a presentation at one of our TOPS events a year prior and had seen me there. So I guess I'm still not famous, at least not yet. So I really want to thank Vanya for helping me by giving me feedback and sharing ideas for this presentation. First, as I mentioned, I used Lose It to track my foods, exercise, and my progress. As you can see, from mid-2009 to mid-2010, there was a loss of 169 pounds. That's not the most amazing thing about this graph. It's that that line is almost straight down. Don't do that. If I had to do it over again, I would have slowed down and lost the weight over 2, maybe 3 years. First off, it was an incredible shock to my body to go from eating 4,000 calories a day with no exercise to eating 1,600 calories a day and doing 1,000 calories of exercise. That's going from net 4,000 calories a day to a net of 600 calories a day. And that can do some real nasty things to your body, and I'm still suffering from those things today. I was playing a game with Lose It to see how much of a calorie deficit I could create to get the weight off faster. How much more food can I cut? How can I get in more calories burned? Unbeknownst to me, what this will do is slow your metabolism to a crawl. Making matters worse is that while I was losing the fat, I was also burning muscle mass along the way. The body will burn lean muscle tissue as you lose weight. Because I was trying to burn as many calories as possible in as short a time period as possible, I concentrated on cardio exercises, swimming, treadmill, stationary bike, so I lost a lot of muscle mass, which again reduces your metabolism. So the quicker you lose the weight, the harder it becomes to maintain the weight loss, which should be the ultimate goal. So now I am working with doctors to help my body get over that shock to the system of losing so much weight in such a short period of time. And of course, I'm working with Vanya to rebuild the muscle mass that I lost in the process. This process should be a marathon, not a sprint. Do not rush to the finish line. If I were to do it over again, I would have done things gradually. I would not have ramped up the cardio as quickly and not dropped the calories as far as I did. And I would have incorporated weight training into that extensive list of exercise activities that I read earlier. In all the time that I was losing, during that year I had just one gain, and that was only 0.2 pounds. And I blame that on being really thirsty before the meeting, forgetting I had weigh-in, and I had a liter of water just before getting on the scale. Let me tell you that it is completely difficult for someone to go an entire year and only have one gain. It's almost unheard of. We all have setbacks. We all have difficult weeks. A vacation cruise, an emotionally disturbing time in our lives, a change in job disrupting our schedule. Stuff happens. There will be times when you can be 100% on fire, planning your meals, eating healthy, getting in your exercise. But there will also be times when you can't do all of those things. And that's okay. Again, it's a marathon, not a sprint. I am an absolutely huge fan of Kelly McGonigal, who henceforth in this presentation will be referred to as just Kelly. If you have a chance, I really recommend that you look up her videos on YouTube. She is a professor at Stanford University and has a PhD in psychology. And it has been her findings that those that forgive themselves for their short-term failings are far more likely to succeed at reaching their long-term goals than those that continue to berate themselves for their mistakes. You cannot hate yourself into success, but you can love yourself there. But what about the times that you are 100% on fire? You've done absolutely everything right this week. You are feeling so good about yourself and you just can't wait to get to the weigh-in. You jump on the scale and it says you're up half a pound. How discouraging is that? I have seen so many people leave the weight room with a scowl because they had done everything that TOPS recommends that they do to lose weight, and the darn scale went the wrong way. Personally, the logical side of my brain will tell you that the scale is a piece of crap. If you have the new TOPS book, my friend George wrote a section on this in chapter 11. You are only responsible for the behaviors that should lead to weight loss, not the movement on the scale itself. The scale uptick could be due to a variety of factors: water retention, muscle gain, slowly digesting food in your stomach. It could be a wide variety of things. Don't trust the scale. I myself go to Toronto every 6 months to get a body fat accurately tested. That's my ultimate measurement. I don't trust my scale to tell me how healthy I am, because as I continue to work with my personal trainers at Freeform Fitness, I'm hopefully regaining muscle mass. So the scale is becoming more and more useless as the months go by. So what indicators are better than using the scale? Do you feel stronger? Do you have more energy? Do your clothes fit better? Is your waist size getting smaller? One tip that I heard from Heather of halfsizeme.com she gave was that if you have to use the scale, try doing it on 1 month averages. If you keep up these good behaviors over the course of a month, eventually you will see fat losses. Don't let a 1 week aberration create frustration or cause your efforts to stall. Keep on going and you will get there. I always tell people that my biggest regret for that year was not taking the time to enjoy it. I don't actually remember much of that year. It's all a blur to me. I was so focused on finishing the race, I didn't take time to enjoy the journey. And that includes documenting the process. I recommend that people take pictures along the way. Each day, if you can, or at least every other day, take a few minutes and write down what successes that you've had. Kelly frowns upon this practice, but I think in this one she's wrong. Her studies show that people that document their successes tend to rest on their laurels and reward themselves with bad behavior, such as, oh, I've lost 30 pounds, I'm looking and feeling so much better, so even though I still have 20 pounds to go, I think I deserve to buy myself a cheesecake that has been tempting me for the last few months. If you can keep your focus, which was never a concern for me, and you can find ways to reward yourself for a job well done other than falling back into bad behaviors, then by all means write down the experience, not just for yourself, but so that you can share your story with others. Many people have come up to me and said I should write a book about what that year was like. Unfortunately, I think I'd have to spend a fortune on a hypnotist to help me remember what that year was all about, because I wrote down nothing. I started my blog 3 years after losing the weight. I use it now to write down what is eating me and what's going through my head on any given day. I have found it therapeutic to organize my thoughts, but also to share those thoughts with others. I wish I had discovered blogging when I started losing the weight. It would have made writing my New York Times bestseller so much easier. I have seen so many people come into tops and they continue to struggle. Or they have some success in the first 3 months and then it stalls. Or they lose and gain the same 10 pounds over and over. And sometimes these people get so frustrated that they quit tops and they give up on themselves. They consider themselves failures, but nothing could be further from the truth. You have not failed until you give up trying. Again, I repeat, it's a marathon, not a sprint. There is no time limits on any of these things. Any expectations you have put on yourself and yourself alone. If you are struggling to meet a goal, any goal, you will not get there by giving up. There will be hard times, there will be struggles. The challenge of reaching any goal is not working through the easy times, persevering through the hard times, and finding the strength to keep going, even when you find the path to be a hard uphill climb. That said, struggles and many failures can be seen as a learning experience. Failures can be fantastic, so long as you keep them in perspective. If you found yourself at a buffet dinner and you went completely overboard, you have found something that doesn't work, and you have to analyze how to do it better next time. If you find yourself emotionally eating throughout your evenings, you've found a point of failure that needs addressing. So long as you're able to view your downfalls as a learning experience, then you really have never failed. Every attempt at doing something, successful or not, is a positive experience because you can learn something from that experience. Again, as Kelly said, you don't beat yourself up over the short-term failures, but forgive yourself, learn from the experience, and move on. Now here's one that Vanya says that she sees all the time, particularly early January. People come in all gung-ho to change over their entire life. They are going to get healthy, and this time they mean it. They are not going to quit in February like they've done the last 10 years running. And they're all set to change everything. No more potato chips while watching the hockey game. No Friday night pizza. It's going to be kale and bean sprouts and spinach for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And they're going to exercise an hour a day every day. They are going to break each and every one of their bad habits overnight. Unfortunately, that is only setting themselves up for failure. Habits die hard. Breaking one bad habit is a challenge. It's like snapping a pencil. Snapping one is doable. Snapping 20 at a time, good luck with that. It is far more productive to try breaking one at a time over a long period than to struggle and ultimately fail at breaking them all at once. A good guideline is to pick the worst of the worst. Perhaps it's eating out at fast food restaurants. Try to break this habit for 2 weeks. If you're successful at avoiding fast food restaurants for those 2 weeks, you can try setting another goal, maybe getting 30 minutes of exercise 6 days a week. So after 4 weeks, you're exercising most days and you're avoiding fast food. Pretty good progress for 1 month and something to be proud of. If you try to do them all at once, likely the only thing you'll have at the end of the month is frustration and a desire to quit again. At this point, I want to go back to that TOPS International Conference in Milwaukee. No, wait, let's go back 1 year earlier, the 2009 conference in Halifax. I went to that one as well. It just happened to coincide with my trip back home that year. No need to rent a room at the university, free room and board at Mom's place. I really enjoyed the conference, but the most memorable part was a speech by Peter Mahoney, owner of the Head Shop beauty salon chain. Mr. Mahoney spoke about setting goals, not weight loss goals, but any life goals, and how to set out achieving them. He had set many goals during his life, in his business life, in his personal life, and one of those goals that he had set for himself was to run a marathon. At this point, I had just about reached my goal weight and was looking to set a new goal for myself. I listened to how passionately Mr. Mahoney spoke about his running. I thought I would give running a try. I wasn't going to be as ambitious as Mr. Mahoney. I was just going to be happy running a half marathon. I hadn't gone running before, not once, yet I had set the goal to run a half marathon. It wasn't until the following spring, 9 months later, that I purchased my first pair of running shoes, and I headed out to the running room store to join their running club. If people are interested, most of the running room stores have a walking club. You may want to call ahead and check, but it's always good to have other people to exercise with. In any case, it was April of 2010, and I joined their 3-kilometer running group, but I found that was too easy. So the next week I joined their 5K group. Again, it was too easy. So, third week, I joined their 10K group, and I was keeping up at good speed right to the end. One of the runners beside me, noticeably tired, looked over towards me and said, "Wow, you're keeping up a really good pace for this distance. How long have you been training?" I looked over towards him and shyly said, "This is my third week." He didn't seem to like my answer too much. So only 6 weeks after taking up running, I bravely joined their 15K group. I was still a little scared about making another big jump in distance. How long before I actually hit a wall? Well, the 15K went okay, so I felt confident to register for my first half marathon and see how it would go. I had set my goal time to finish under 2 hours. And this is me. While on that trip to Milwaukee, the day after being in the receiving line for being one of the TOPS award winners, I did the Milwaukee Rock and Soul Half Marathon. It was the crowning moment for that whole experience. I had gone from being 340 pounds in the middle of 2009 to running a half marathon in the middle of 2011. You can just imagine the feeling I had as I crossed that finish line. And yes, I am wearing my lucky TOPS hat that I wear at every running event, and I wear a TOPS t-shirt as well. However, the heat in Milwaukee was unbearable that day. It was a 45 degrees Celsius humidex. 20 to 30% of the event participants withdrew or did not finish due to the heat. They ended up closing the course early and ran out of water. So due to the conditions, I couldn't go full out for the whole distance, and even had to walk parts of the way. So I missed my 2-hour goal and finished with 2 hours, 9 minutes. But I did not care, not in the least. I wore that medal proudly. I wore it for a week, only taking it off to shower. Whether I was going on a business trip or out on a date, that medal stayed on. When I got home, I immediately registered to do another half marathon. I was determined to beat that 2-hour goal time. I did the Ottawa Army Run, raising money for the wounded soldiers back from Afghanistan. It was a windy day, so my lucky TOPS hat is in my hand and not on my head. I beat my 2-hour goal with a time of 1 hour and 44 minutes. I didn't just beat my goal, I crushed it. And what had me beaming the whole rest of the day? You remember that gym that my friend Salim took me to way back at the start of my journey? Well, the fitness instructor for that gym finished only 30 seconds ahead of me. And the running coach from the running room store where I was training, he finished 30 seconds behind me. I then got it in my head that I wanted to run a half marathon in my hometown of Halifax, so I registered to do the Blue Nose race the following spring. Halifax is definitely a challenging race, having so many hills, particularly Citadel Hill at the center of town. I was a little disappointed with my time of 1 hour and 46 minutes, But it had to be my favorite event thus far because I did the event with a family member. My mother did the 10K event. Here we both are, proudly displaying our respective medals. After that race, I continued to do a few more half marathons, doing the Army Run again and the Toronto Waterfront event. I then figured I was ready. I was going to give it a try. I was going to see if I could pull off doing something crazy and run a full marathon. I picked the Halifax Blue Nose Marathon because, despite the hills, I wanted to do it at home, with family to support me, and having familiar terrain around me. Here is a picture of me running through Point Pleasant Park. You will notice that I am wearing 2 iPhones, one on each arm. I told people that if I twisted an ankle or pulled a muscle, I was going to crawl to that finish line. Nothing, absolutely nothing, was going to stop me from finishing the marathon. Except if the music stopped, and then I'd have to pull out immediately. I finished that marathon with a time of 4 hours and 20 minutes. A friend of mine who had lost a similar amount of weight as what I had told me approaching the finish line of his first marathon. He told me, "As I was approaching the last 500 meters, I closed my eyes, and I could see the new, thinner, healthier version of myself running away from that overweight blob of a man I used to be. I was leaving that guy behind for the rest of my life." I knew from that point on this was going to be my life. I had faced the demons, and I had beaten them. As I crossed that finish line, I swore that I would remember that guy, remember the struggles he went through, but understand that I am no longer that person anymore. I had won. So listening to my friend, I didn't get that imagery as I approached that finish line, but I definitely could feel feelings. I crossed the finish line, weeping a few tears of joy, while belting out the entirely apropos song, "I Love Myself Today." I was so incredibly exhausted after that race, and I could barely move. I have a picture of what I looked like that afternoon.
I have no idea why CJ was so tired. You'd think she had run a marathon. You can't see it underneath the jacket, but I did have my medal on. This time it stayed on for a month. I went to the Ontario Tops conference a few weeks later, and on the last day of the conference, I wore my dress suit up on stage to be recognized as a second-year Cops for keeping my weight off for more than 2 years. Later that evening, I had the opportunity to go to dinner with Barb Cady, head of the Tops organization. Barbara asked me why I wasn't still wearing my medal. I quickly pulled it from the pocket of my suit jacket. It was a month later, and it still had not left my person for more than a minute. I now keep all of my race medals in the same box as my Tops awards, including my crown. That is because I see them as being one of the same thing. I would not have been able to earn those medals if it wasn't for the Tops organization helping me to lose the weight. And I would not be keeping the pounds off and staying fit if it wasn't for the motivation those medals give me. They are such an interdependent thing that it only feels right to keep them all in the same.
So what is life like after losing 160 pounds? I have the hardest time explaining it. I'll start my attempt with this quote. "What you get by achieving your goals is not as important as what you become by achieving your goals." Zig Ziglar. Physically, I feel fantastic. Being able to do these running events is wonderful. That guy that couldn't get up one flight of stairs without being out of breath has now climbed the CN Tower. Twice. Both times in about 16 minutes. This here is my newspaper article hanging in my doctor's office. He has told me repeatedly that if they gave out gold stars for health, he'd be giving me a whole bag. But the physical recovery is only the tiniest tip of the iceberg. Zig was completely right. I had achieved my goals of getting healthier and fitter. But in knowing that I could achieve my goals if I put my mind to it, has given me the confidence to try things that I would never have dreamed of trying before. I've thrown caution to the wind, have decided to live life on the edge. Literally. This is me on the outside of the top of the CN Tower. I am absolutely terrified of heights, or at least I used to be, but I was tired of always being afraid to do things. I wanted to step out of that tiny little world that I used to live in and do things. I missed out a lot in those years of being prisoner to being obese, and I wanted to experience everything that life has to offer. Another fear of mine? Public speaking. I couldn't even present a project at work to a couple of colleagues without getting severe butterflies. I was always the shy little wallflower, never ever wanting to be the center of attention. Fear of rejection and humiliation always led me away from the spotlight. When I realized the Halifax Marathon was just one weekend away from the Nova Scotia Tops Conference, I offered one of the organizers my services. I asked if she needed any help with the stage or setting up chairs or anything like that. I'd be glad to help any way that I could. She replied that she would like me to be the motivational speaker for the conference. And I had no butterflies. I was so overjoyed just to be asked. I jumped at the opportunity. It was only later that I realized how different that I am compared to only a few years ago. I would have been horrified to be asked to speak in front of an audience of hundreds and hundreds of people, but not anymore. I mentioned before about my love of cycling. It's like my crack cocaine. This picture was taken atop of Champlain Lookout in Gatineau Park, Quebec. It is one of the highest points in the Ottawa area, and the hill is used for professional cyclists to train for their racing events. I take that trail about once a month from spring to fall. I take an appreciation in that physical activity. That exercise is not punishment, but something I derive incredible joy from, has been life-altering for me. And one more example. For the first time ever this fall, I took part in the Color Run, which is a 5K race where you wear light colored clothing, and along the route you get covered with colored cornstarch. Again, the old Don would never have done anything this silly and outrageous and fun. But life is for living. It's not about being safe and doing the prudent thing, but it's about rocking the boat a little and seeing what happens. I had an absolute blast with the Color Run. I did notice that the age of the crowd was very, very different from my half marathon races. This was mostly teens and 20-year-olds, which was just fine by me. That's what I feel like these days. Someone recently asked me how it felt turning 40, and I honestly replied that I think this is the youngest I can remember being, both physically and mentally. I feel like a teenager. It's been like I found a fountain of youth. Before I end this presentation, I have a few more pieces of advice that I'd like to share. First, I have had the honor of meeting so many tops provincial and international royalty, people who have lost vast amounts of weight, and almost all of them lament one thing: not losing the weight sooner. If I knew what it felt like today, I would have lost the weight so many years ago. So don't put it off another day. I put it off again, and I put it off until half my life had passed away. I showed you that picture of Mom after we had finished our respective Blue Nose events. Mom went to see what her finish time was, and she was discouraged to see that she finished at the back of the pack. I had to explain to her that these events are not about beating other people, but making you a better person than you were yesterday. Everyone holding a medal should be incredibly proud of themselves for pushing themselves to new goals. On the other hand, my brother, who chose to stay home and backed out of doing the 10K with Mom, he was getting laughed. I was so proud of my mother on that day for getting up and doing it despite her reservations. I have heard so many people tell me that they're too old to get in shape. Some are resigned that this is their fate. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, guess what? You're not a dog. And even that's not true. CJ didn't learn to roll over until she was 8. I've seen people in their 70s get their health back. There is one amazing guy at the public pool where I go swimming. He's in his mid-90s and he's swimming every day. And I see his friends there trying to keep up with him as they try to stay healthy and alert. You might not be able to run marathons. Well, there is that guy in Toronto that did the Waterfront Marathon at the age of 107. But it is never, ever too late to make changes in your life to reach your goals. This is a tough one for many people. If you're not ready to be vigilant and keep eating right and to keep exercising, don't bother losing the weight. It has to be a complete lifestyle change from now to the day you die. If you're on a temporary diet and you're doing things to lose weight that you don't plan on continuing to do for the rest of your life, stop right now. Because you'll just end up putting the weight back on, which is harder on your body than if you had stayed at the higher weight to begin with. You do not hit your goal weight and the world suddenly becomes rainbow, lollipops, and unicorns. Well, there are quite a few rainbows, but not a lot of lollipops. Maintaining the weight has been 10 times as hard as taking off the weight. So I have to continually put in the work to stay fit, but I am dedicated to this lifestyle change. For the most part, I will agree with this. However, chocolate drizzled across strawberry cheesecake may be an exception to the rule. But that joy across the taste buds is so fleeting. The joy of being able to do all the things that I can do today lasts for the rest of my life. When I'm offered the choice between eating unhealthy, greasy food or sweet junk food and being able to live the life that I have today, there really is no choice. It has been so liberating. As my body has shrunk, I have grown as a person. So when faced with a free cupcake at work, I think about where I come from and where I want to go with my life, and I politely decline. I might have scared a few people a minute ago when I said that maintaining has been 10 times harder than losing. Well, part of that is because of what I mentioned earlier about losing muscle mass and hurting my metabolism by losing the weight too fast. But just from talking to other maintainers, each of them has said that it's been a struggle. It takes work, but we do it because it's worth it. You are worth it. It's not just about having a few more years at the end of your life, which is more likely now that I've lost the weight, but it's all those years in between today and when I pass away that will be better. The best years of my life have been the 3 years that I've been in Mints. Even if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, it will have been worth it to lose the weight. I go back to what Zig Ziglar said. It isn't so much that I lost the weight, but it's what I have become by losing the weight. It is hard work to lose the weight. It is hard work to keep the weight off, but that work pays off in so many ways that you don't even realize all of them. The day you take the first step, the day you start over and commit to your goals, that day that Salim took me down to the gym for that first workout, those were the days when you take responsibility for yourself. I said that I Love Myself Today was the song that was playing at the end of my marathon. I say that was the theme song for my entire weight loss journey. But it wasn't the day that I crossed the finish line when I started to love myself. It wasn't the day that I hit my goal. It was the day that I stood up and told myself, okay, Don, we're going to give this a try, and we're going to put every fiber of our being into this fight. And you can do the exact same thing when you set your own life goals. When you commit to yourself, to the mission to improve yourself, that is when you are showing yourself that you care and feel that you are worth the effort. And I have one last piece of advice. And if you take absolutely nothing else from this presentation, then please take this last piece of advice to heart. It comes from the Honorable and Wise Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Give a man a fish and feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and feed him for a lifetime. Teach a man to cycle, and he will realize that fishing is both stupid and boring. Desmond Tutu. I thank you for bearing with me to the end. I really enjoyed putting this together, and I hope people got something out of it. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with me. My email is don_whiting@hotmail.com. Whiting is WHITING. And my blog can be found at halfthemassUsedTobe.wordpress.com. Hope to hear from you. Bye.